It has been 5 years since the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping, and yet her tragic and triumphant tale is still fresh in our minds. Elizabeth is now 20 years old. She's a sophomore at Brigham Young University, and when she's not studying music and enjoying life at college, she's campaigning with her father, Ed Smart, for tougher legislation against sex offenders. I sat down with Elizabeth and the whole Smart family to talk about the past, plans for the future, and forgiveness. Here's the extended interview. What do you make the significance of March 12th when it comes this year, 5-year anniversary?
It's a day, just a normal day, but I just think about how blessed I am and how wonderful people have been to me in my life and just how very thankful I am to be where I am today.
Can you believe 5 years have gone by?
Sometimes it feels like a lifetime has gone by. Sometimes it doesn't even seem like it happened. Just because I have such great friends and great family and I have great co-workers that a lot of the time I just go on as if nothing ever happened.
How's college?
It's great.
You are now in what year?
I am a sophomore.
So you go off to school, everybody's hoping everything's going to be just fine, but then there's an episode at your school when you go off there, right? There's a girl who goes missing not far from where you were staying, right?
Right.
Now what was that like when that happened? How'd you find out?
Well, I had just moved in the day before, and I think I met her once in passing going up and down the stairs, and then my dad came and he told me.
For you all, this was exactly what you needed to hear at least. I mean, you know, obviously you think about the other family involved and what happened, but when you heard the news that a kid was missing from campus, how'd you handle it?
You know, all of a sudden I wanted to pull her out of her apartment complex because she was right there next door to this young girl. And all of the media, as we drove in, you know, there were all the vans there out in front of her apartment complex, and fortunately nobody knew.
Do people know who you are?
I think so. Most of the time, yes.
How do you deal with that?
Just thank them. Well, a lot of the time people don't say anything. They just kind of get that look on their face and they're staring, and sometimes they'll point. You just keep on going.
How do you deal with that?
First of all, she tells them she's not Elizabeth.
Yes.
That's exactly right. You know what? You do look a lot alike, though. It's great, you know? So you say, I'm not Elizabeth, and then once they say, okay, so you're the sister.
Yes.
Now what do you say?
Well, they usually ask what happened, and I'm like, well, nothing much. I mean,
you don't want
know
to
the
talk about it.
story,
You don't
yeah.
want to talk about it again and again.
Yeah.
When people want to talk about the events of that night,
Well, I usually just tell them because they won't give up until I do, so.
what's your stock statement that you give people?
Yes, I'm her brother.
One thing I will say that I don't do now is I don't say my last name most of the time. And I think that people, for the most part, unless they hear from someone else, they won't know who I am. And so then I'll just, you know, carry on as normal. And I'm not afraid to talk about it. I've never felt bad about it. I don't feel bad about it now. But I just don't, that's not my topic of choice that I will bring up. And if someone else has interest or would like to know something, you know, I'm more than happy to talk about it. But it's not something that I would bring up on my own.
Did it give you some perspective on life you don't think you would have had otherwise?
Oh, definitely.
Like what?
When I think about my life, I think about it in 3 segments now. I mean, there's before Elizabeth, there's when she was gone, and there's after. And I mean, I can't just pinpoint one thing, but I mean, just it puts a different level of importance on life. It's easy to lose perspective on life with the details, things like, I mean, I'm in college, so it's like grades or money or, you know, social life. And when I think back to this experience, you know, it really helps me to put life in perspective and say, you know, these little things are really not that important. And this is what really is important in my life.
If the trial does go forward and you want to help the prosecution, you may be put in a position where you have to talk about this. Not just to somebody like me, but with these lawyers in the game, one of them who wants to play with your version of events. You think you could handle that? Would it matter enough to do it?
I think that I could handle it because, I mean, I don't think I really want to, but I don't want them getting back out. I don't want Mitchell and Barzy getting out of, I don't want them ever out, because I really believe that they wouldn't stop. I think that if they were to be released, I think they would come back, and they would try to come back after me.
The Lunsford family, they're going through their own situation. They're thinking about suing for a botched investigation. What's your take on that?
I couldn't begin to, you know, judge what Mark is going through, and you know, he has to do what he feels is the most important thing, and whether that's, you know, in most situations, I would have to say that I think that is pushing for change.
Parents, when the kids go missing, sometimes they get blamed.
I've been kind of upset with a lot of the judgment that's going on with Kate and Jerry McCann, because I think that, you know, there's no way that they ever considered that their children would be abducted. That
you believe that? You're on the side of the McCanns?
I do.
Because it really goes to the point. I mean, they have been under suspicion both from the media and from the authorities.
They have been, and I think initially the parents have to be looked at. You have to determine, are they at fault? Because in too many cases they are. But on the other hand, I think that when a child is missing, your heart's broken, and you just are going through the worst nightmare of your life. And you know, it compounds it when the judgmental situation comes into play.
And your family has a unique capacity for forgiveness.
I think in order to move on, one must forgive.
I've forgiven them for what they did to me, but that doesn't mean I want to see them just walk out and go do it to someone else.
Justice is justice.
Right. I think if there's a problem, it needs to be taken care of. And like, I don't let them interfere in my life now. I have a wonderful life, and I don't think they deserve a minute more of it.